with you, Matt.
That was good, Mo.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. You know, I just want to make sure the final stretch, you got a good laugh in there.
Thank you so much.
You know, got to cause trouble somewhere. Yeah, one of these days I'll tell you my story about Jimmy Buffett and my hold music. Yeah, that got me in a little trouble at work. Okay, trouble's good though. How's everybody doing? Can you see my slideshow? All right, good stuff. Okay, everybody, 3 days in a row. Hopefully some of you have met me virtually, and then also I was there last year. So I pulled out from my archives a couple of your Stump the Teachers. So hopefully we have time to get through that today. We're gonna pack a couple of hours into the last 45 minutes of your session. I think just to make sure things go well, I love to set a timer so that we can do some questions at the end. So I'll set a timer, 46 minutes. That'll keep me on track because you know I'm going to put a 2-hour class into 45 minutes. For those of you that have seen me talk, you know I can do that 8-hour stretch. So we'll try to stay on track. My name's Mo, and I've been hanging around 911 pretty much since I was born. And my whole family's in the public safety arena. I love it, and I love what you do, and I have been around long enough to call myself an old dog learning new tricks, and super excited to talk about our next generation of staffing. So lots of next generation technology discussions. I actually do quite a bit of roundtable facilitation on next generation 911. I do a lot of work on computer telephony and CAD and very cool things like software that opens the doors for fire departments and shuts the stove off, and computer generated voice that tells the fire department when they're rolling out what's going to be happening and where they're going. And I think I was sharing a story with my dad about that very cool automation of where things are today. And you know, he's in his late 70s and a retired fire chief, and can still share the story about when he almost burnt down his firehouse with a pot of chili. And if he could have rolled out and had the stove turned off, how cool that would be. So when we talk about next generation, we're always talking about what's coming, what's changing, how that's going to impact your life. 2 days ago, we talked about how that's not very much fun for some people and causes all this individual apprehension. And many years ago, we started to talk about the next generation of staffing of people and their age and their groups and some jokes around it and even some stereotypes and some labels, a little bit of funny things. You know, there's a couple of very cool YouTube videos out there on millennials and when you think about being super careful, look, I can even feel myself being super careful about stereotyping and labeling because it's incorrect. And even though it is a group of folks, you can really rub folks the wrong way by stereotyping against a class of people and possibly maybe making a judgment about that. And of course, it happens with genders, it happens with age groups, it happens with diversities, and there's some sensitivities around that. And so when you think about it, when you're dealing with the humans and you're going forward, it is pretty incredible. This group of young people coming in, and when you are in the industry for a long time, you see folks coming in and notice things that they could learn and notice things that they could be doing better because you come with wisdom and experience, and rightly so, because you have all these years under your belt and you're going to draw from experience and you're going to make decisions accordingly. And you know, if you had a bomb threat and you've been working at your agency for 20 years, that you already know what's going to be happening. And you're going to be faced with calls like, oh, what about the lady that ran out of the house and crossed the street and dialed 911 and said, I've been kidnapped for 10 years? If you've been around for 15, 20 years, you're going to have a different experience on how you would respond to an event like that. And if you've only been around for a few months or a year, you're going to be, there's no protocol for kidnapped for 10 years. Nope, 11 years, turn the page. That doesn't exist. So you're going to have to be looking and figuring out who's going to help you with something like that. And hopefully you're looking towards someone that's not going to say, don't screw it up, and look to someone that's not going to give you a look like, figure it out, and how come you don't know, or treat you like you haven't paid your dues yet. So there's some things that go on with bringing in a younger person into our world of experience and wisdom, and then feeling grateful about that. First of all, grateful that you have a butt in the seat and that you have staffing there to provide relief, because if you inspire them and welcome them in, by the way, that's different than hiring them and training them, and they stick around longer than what we talked about a couple of days ago, 67% working 3 years or less. That's the percentage around who's quitting. 67% worked 3 years or less. So if you can inspire and welcome them in, and they got a butt in the seat, now what, you get a day off. And then you'd be, thank you, please don't quit, I need a day off. And even though it's exhausting. And by the way, I'm kind of glad it's virtual, because I can hear eyes rolling. It is exhausting to have young people come in and train them, only to have them leave, and then have more people come in only to have them leave. And new people, whether they're young or older, they come with mistakes and repeating and figuring it out. And I've told you 15 times, why don't you just get it? And they come with a little extra work. And if you can have the fortitude and the grace to get through some of that, you can find in that space some high performers and some good ones too. I've met some of the most energetic millennial groupings of people in training departments down in Florida, and in training departments up in Colorado, and folks that have stayed gainfully employed at a 911 center for 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 years. And when you think about that, how come that's a fantastic thing? Because they're projected in this age group to have 9, 12 jobs in their lifetime. And not just jobs, but like a different career path and a different career path. And they're trying to find a different path forward. And they aren't really subscribing to 30 years at the Belco and SBC and Bell South and GTE and Verizon and CenturyLink. And they're not subscribing to 25, 30 years there and then getting a watch. As a matter of fact, my brother at the ambulance company, 30 years, he got a gift card to a magazine and not even a card. Congratulations, 30 years of being a paramedic. He used the gift card to get a generator for his garage. And then a couple days later in the mail came a blanket from his partner from the very first ambulance that they ever rode with a card. And that human connection and that years of experience, something that isn't always easily found in 2020. So we're going to talk a little bit today about those age groups. I'm merging them together. I'm going to give you a plethora of statistics so that you can kind of figure it out. Statistics sometimes help you figure out why the stereotypes, and a couple funny stump the teacher cards that you guys gave me the last time I was out at Tina. How do you talk to a stinky person? Yeah, that's a good one. Now y'all want to know the answer, don't you? Okay, so grab some pen and paper. You know that I'm a big fan of writing. Now I can't see you writing, but if we were in the class together, I'd stand in front of you till you wrote. So comm centers coming with old technology, and coming forward with new technology. Some of your best technology experts are going to be coming from folks that were raised in technology. And yesterday we mentioned training, maybe it was 2 days ago, we mentioned training a couple of traditionals, because my age group's in that traditional age group. and how difficult it was for people to learn how to use a mouse, left click, right click, please stop clicking, and then watching women that we were training and young men that we were training click and drag the window off the screen and not be able to get it back, or picking it up and pointing it like it's a remote control. Coming with software to work environments where the job description didn't even require them to know what a mouse was. So you flip forward and you think about this generation's conflict and tension started a long time ago, because that lady being a supervisor could be sitting next to a young professional 911 telecommunicator only working there a few months, who can left click, right click, shortcut on the keyboard and be fine with it. And no, you shouldn't pick your mouse up and throw it across the room at her because she did it faster and you're her supervisor. Nor should you give her the stinky eye. So we got to think about the tensions and the disrespect that starts happening. And then we say, oh, look at that. My supervisor can't even use a mouse. And the supervisor's like, I'm going to take this mouse and wrap it around your neck and choke you with it. And she's like, good luck, it's wireless. There's all kinds of things that go back and forth when you're trying to come and have the technology. And so how can you address something like that? Well, you first maybe think about a different perspective. You have this group of happy people coming in and they're charging into the workforce. I love this picture because I have met supervisors that say out loud, that won't last very long. That's too bad, because that's joyful. And what is joyful? In the handout I gave you a couple days ago, what is joyfulness? Maintaining a good attitude, even when faced with unpleasant conditions. By the way, I have found smiles like that in Minneapolis, in Florida, in Texas, in women and men dispatching 25, 26 years, because they figured out how to manage their coping skills and manage their attitudes and manage what they're doing to heal when they're not sitting at the position or supervising or doing something. And so much like we mentioned yesterday, gardening, cooking, drawing, coloring, those things that help you keep and hang on to it. And I wish I could remember her name at Minnesota Sheriff's Conference, meeting someone 28 years and going and finding her, and what are you doing that you're 28 years and you're smiling like this young lady here is, and gardening. And she also cut the flowers and the vegetables and brought them into work and shared them. She's been doing that her whole career. And that in my mind sticks as someone who gets it. Okay, so character-based communications is part of how we're going to manage, because half the time you just want to slap that smile off and get back to work. It doesn't work like that. And then also you don't want to snuff them out. You really don't, unless you want to cover their shift. And unless you want to be like this lovely lady that I'm coaching right now, who has worked almost 92 days without a day off. How hard is that? Or the folks that are pulling 5 12-hour shifts in a row because they don't have enough staffing. Today, I chatted with a Florida agency. 47 people is what they should have, and they have 32. And how can they cover their shifts and their workload? So we don't want to snuff it out. We also can be highly disrespected and annoyed by some of the things that they demand, or what's another word, entitled. And we can also offend because we made that judgment about them feeling entitled. And then, of course, much like any age group, whether you're dealing with burnout, energy, joy, disrespect, there are going to be some bad apples that make the rest of us go, oh, that's why. And some funny stories that make you go, I can't believe you asked that question, because of the backgrounds and the diversities of how people came together. Now, I popped this picture up because it shows a plethora of cell phones. The other thing that the generation coming in brings to us is some demands on communications, and some demands that kind of open up risk and liability for a comm center, and being able to manage the new way we're communicating in a way that you still create confidentiality, pictures, and I hate to say it because it always ruffles feathers, but common sense. And common sense is a lot like deodorant. Everybody should use it, but not everybody does. And you think, you might think it's common sense to not take a picture of a scene or an accident or a note or someone sleeping in your comm center and posting it. You might think that's common sense. You might have to tell somebody else raised differently with their communications devices what is and is not appropriate by the role that they play in the confidentiality, the liability, the risk, and the data. And when we do a social media class, I always pop up a picture. Somebody took a picture of a pregnant lady sleeping in the comm center, and the news picked that up off of their Facebook and said, look, here's our taxpayer dollars at work, and here's a pregnant lady sitting in the dispatch center sleeping. And of course, totally out of context and totally inappropriate, first to be posted, and two, for the story headline to be not even connected properly to the picture. And figuring out, like, understanding and teaching and understanding of the consequences of posting something like that. So there's agency consequences because character sometimes is an afterthought. And remember yesterday I talked about tone and body language, tone of voice and body language and words, and how sometimes your response is a reaction to what you immediately jumped to, maybe even overreacting, and how that can have a consequence and a ripple effect on your shift. So I'm a big fan of understanding the conversation right where you start is going to affect that person, which is going to affect your shift, which will ultimately affect your agency. And so that domino effect can be instantaneous, like a boulder in the water drowning your shift, or a tiny little ripple effect. So it's hurricane season. I was at an agency last year during hurricane season, and they have hurricane warning and all hands on deck. And here comes a 21-year-old asking his supervisor, can I leave early because I have a date? And of course, the story goes, she didn't answer that very well. Hell no, get back out on the floor and get dispatching. Instead of addressing what he wanted, which of course, in the traditional age group, you might not ask such a question, or you might even deem that question ridiculous. I would never, as a workaholic in my world, ask a question if it was all hands on deck. Could I leave early because I have a date? Also, I can't date. I'm married now. I have to have date night with the same guy all the time. So you think, what would your response be? And sometimes people, old dogs would be hell no. And you might even say other things with your facial expression. And he might even deem himself disrespected. Some people actually, when we practice and do role play, I can see you rolling your eyes again. We won't be doing it today because I can't see you. I've even had people say idiots. Okay, well, please don't call your staff idiots. That's probably not going to be the best thing you want. But what happened is this guy got insulted and he went back out on the floor and he copped attitude and he hung out and he didn't really answer the phone very much. And he didn't get to leave early for his date, and people around him got bent out of shape because he was not answering the call and doing the calls and doing the things that he should be doing. And how come he wasn't getting in trouble? And therein lies the tension. And then normally when we're all in the same room together, I throw it out there to a few of you with, what would you say? And also we might even go through, remember I gave you a cheat sheet. So before you speak, with your face and your body language and your tone of voice, you would grab your cheat sheet and you would be something. You would decide to be different than you were yesterday, because hopefully training means learning and to do things a little differently, and finding some corrective maneuvers in where you can make the ultimate goal your shift and the consequence and staffing retention. And if you keep that ultimate goal out there as something you're always mapping to, then you come all the way down right here to this conversation and you say, okay, stupid question in front of me. Please don't say that with your face. And then you're like, yes, okay, man, I have no idea how to answer that question. So you first start out with a smile. See, you didn't even hear me swearing. And I'm swearing and I'm thinking, what a question. All hands on deck, hurricane, you idiots. But we can't say any of that. So smile. And then we're going to decide that we're going to be something. Now, for those of you that went and got this handout, you probably have it. You're going to decide to be something. What are you going to be? Maybe you're going to be discretion. You're going to be discretionary. That means that you're going to recognize and avoid words, actions, and attitudes that could bring undesirable consequences. So if you exercise discretion, maybe you exercise deference, do not offend the taste of those around me. Maybe you start thinking about what you're going to do is going to impact this person, which will impact the shift, which will impact your agency. And then you're going to ask them for something because, you know, some people will try to figure out how to let him leave early because he has a date and be excited about it. And some people will be, no way, Jose. So we have to think through what you're going to ask him for. Well, in this particular case, when we walked through it in Florida, we asked for flexibility. Okay, so thank you for wanting to go out on a date. Also super exciting. And I can't even remember the last time I went because she's married and an old dog. However, excited for you. So because all hands on deck, you might not have heard that earlier, so I'm just going to share it with you. It means that we need everybody helping us with hurricane warnings. And the team needs you, I need you, and you're really awesome on the team. And we need to kind of work together. So I'm going to ask you to be flexible. And then remember you had a cheat sheet. So you can be like, hold on a second, and then read it. Or you could have this up here because you practiced it enough and you're going to ask for flexibility. That means I'm asking you to be willing to change your plans and ideas without getting upset. And can you do that for me? And then you look at them. Okay, I didn't hear you nod. I didn't hear you say anything. So we're going to say, can you do that for me? Can you be flexible and change your plans without getting upset? Because that's what's going to help the team. Yes? Okay, good. Let me hear you say it. All right. Then also my job is to help you. By the way, a lot of stress comes in your role as a young person learning this career path. 48% of it comes from juggling your shift life and your personal life. And me as management supervisor and super awesome leader, I'm supposed to help you with that. So how do you keep your schedule? Paper, book, phone? Okay, figure that out. And then before you leave today, you come and show me your schedule. And so that we don't go through conflict often on this particular topic, we're going to talk about days that you can say yes to a date, and I'm going to help you. Now, this is where some folks might say you're coddling folks and you're working through things that they should figure out on their own. They're grown adults. Okay, well, you do figure out how to communicate with the deaf. You do figure out how to communicate with different languages, Spanish, Russian, French. Software helps you work through some of these things. So if you look at it from the perspective of communicating with different age groups, well, then you stop expecting them to figure it all out on their own. And you tap into how their world is different. And you also tap into building trust and morale and understanding that what we said yesterday, 48% of the stress load in today's world with age groups coming into this emergency response environment, dispatching, telecommunicating, knowing more about first responder world than anytime ever before us. 48% of that is juggling shift life with personal life and the people involved. And ignoring it would be like ignoring learning how to use your CAD system. It's that prevalent in our workspace. And by the way, it's a mental, social, and physical toll that it's going to take on their stress, their body, and you've been taking it for a while. And so you kind of know how it feels. Sometimes we forget about what year one is. Let's just run through a couple of statistics. In the real world, why is this a big story? I mean, we can't just sweep it under the rug. Turnover, whether millennial labeled or not, is costing billions of dollars. 29% of the millennial population like to be engaged at work, are actively engaged at work. 16 are disengaged, 55%. When we think about these types of statistics, oh, look, I got a window over my numbers. 55 are not engaged. Okay, millennials, 64% less likely to say they will switch jobs, right? So you might not know that they're going to be switching jobs, right? I got to get this window out of my way. Okay, 42% of millennials expect to change jobs every 1 to 3 years regularly today in that statistic. 59 say opportunities to learn and grow are very, very important to them. So imagine that I walked into a sheriff's office recently. I say recently, but it was like February. Recently, I walked into a sheriff's office and opening up a nice training class, and you have a group of supervisors and some new hires all coming together in the same room. 7 people who haven't even answered the phone yet, with some supervisors who've been there for a while. And one of them says, passed over for a promotion, and the other one says, the only way you're ever going to get promoted is someone drop dead. Oh, someone's going to drop dead. That's the only way to get promoted. You see this group sitting over here, hear it, and then start talking about it. Imagine dropping that when 59% say that learning and growing is very important to them. Okay, so 87% say professional development or career growth is important to them. And so when you look at your agencies where you're sitting, you might have 5 or 12 people working there. You might have 25, you might have 47. When you look at the professional development and career growth, okay, Captain Obvious, there's no place for these people to go if supervisor 1 never leaves. But that does not mean you can't do professional development and career growth. They can be actively involved in associations. They can be a SME. They can be a trainer. Remember the energetic folks I talked about in Florida, 2 years on the floor and then learning something else in their system like text to 911, then moving to the training department and growing and learning and excited and bouncing in the room and having people scoff at them. I've been at this agency longer than you've been alive and treating them poorly. And imagine, I've met a couple young ladies that have been promoted and they're younger than the people that they're supervising. And they're writing to me with, how can I get them to listen to me? They've been here longer than me. I've done everything I need to get promoted, and they still won't listen to me. And they're stuck with, this is how we've always done it, treating me poorly. So when you look at staffing retention and the consequences of bringing this group of people up in your agency, being grateful. When we think about gratefulness, back to my anti-bullying character traits, gratefulness, letting others know by my words and actions how they have benefited my life. So grateful that someone is willing to learn this career in a time when it is so tough and there's so much to know and you have more access to more things going on in your universe than ever before. You know when another agency is going through trouble faster sometimes than people you're sitting next to, if you're paying attention to the buzz, and you share that grief and you share that celebration and you share heroes and you share final shifts, you share all kinds of things more than you ever did before. So when we think about this age group coming in, being grateful, that's not easy. It's also not easy for them to be coming in and being grateful for being trained, learning something new, and possibly being disrespected. So it does have to become a two-way street. Flexibility will improve productivity, and 49 say it'll improve their happiness. It's been a while since some of you have been happy, I can tell. Okay, so when we think about flexibility and we think about Captain Obvious, one of my favorite captains, by the way, I also like Lieutenant Positive. Okay, so we had a millennial come in, turn in a nice card and it says, can I work from home? Well, that was last year. And can you imagine? No was the answer. And it was put into a suggestion box. And actually what happened in this exercise is that suggestion was tossed. Never even brought up in the briefing, not addressed. And then in the coaching and the figuring out, I hear they don't answer the questions that go in the suggestion box, just the ones they want to answer. So which one did they not answer? Can we work from home? Well, of course not, and that's a silly question, and they're disrespecting the suggestion box. And I said, well, that's actually not true, disrespecting the suggestion box. First of all, they put something in it, and that's what you want, is participation. Two, I have been to several trade shows in the last couple of years where vendors are talking about remote activity and remote working. And one vendor was even sharing bunny slippers. So when someone goes to a trade show and they hear vendors yapping away about what's coming and all the cool things coming with AI this and remote working that, they're coming back wondering if you're going to install that technology and do something like that. Plus, they have parents that work from home and they have friends that work from home. And remote technology securely has taken leaps and bounds ahead of where in securities than it ever used to be. And of course, some agencies are locked down tight. Some of them are flexible. And so it's not a stupid question. And when you think about it, they felt disrespected because we never addressed the question. So there's a lot of ways that you can take something, figure it out, and then spit it back out. And then you flip to today. I bet you many agencies figured out some remote working and some remote dispatching and some remote something. And so it's not a foreign concept anymore. And just because you don't agree with the question doesn't mean it can't be respectfully addressed. So look at this, 75% of millennials would prefer to work from home. No kidding. You can wear just about anything. Or other locations where they feel they could be productive. Even myself, when I'm here with all my monitors, I need to change a venue. Unfortunately, I go home to a home office and I work even longer. So sometimes we're changing our productivity so that we can work too much, and you have to be careful about that. When you think about our environment being more restrictive, it's no wonder that they want to go find something else that pays more and is more flexible and has career growth. So it's even more important that we work on techniques that pull them in, get them excited about staying in their career path and that lifeline that I talked about, getting forward with it. And how can you help them thrive in this environment and be grateful for the years that they're going to dedicate to, and tap them into saving a life. I mean, living with that and knowing that and feeling that is pretty awesome experience. And when you understand that age group, one of the most important things to them is doing something of value for the community. And sometimes they do it even though they're not very well paid, because of the value that they're providing for the community. And if you can tap into that value structure and that need to give back to the community, you can have high performing, high productivity, younger generations working with you and alongside you, taking on responsibilities and being in charge of things, if only you gave them trust, and if only you thought about where they might be in 10 years, and if only you let them rise to the occasion. And if only you let yourself rise to similar occasions, as opposed to, oh, I'm here for the long haul. Retired in place is also RIP. So you have to also give a little bit back to yourself and feed the energy to yourself so that you can lead by example. Workplace quality is a big deal to the younger group of folks. And of course, you know, there's going to be a little silliness. I have heard some silly questions, you know, can I bring my support dog to work? Okay, some agencies allow that, by the way. Why do I have to answer the phone if people are going to yell at me? Can I just hang up? And please don't hang up. No, you can't hang up. And also, people are going to yell. and providing some understanding instead of scolding them for asking the question, understanding how to respond to it, and then what to do when people are yelling at them. These are real live questions in Hire and Inspire conferences that I've been giving on questions you're afraid to ask your supervisor for fear of retribution or written up or anything. So one of the questions that comes up very often is the need for personal space. Can I ask my supervisor to give me some personal space? They're always in me, touching me, pushing me, and they're in my bubble. And so you have to open up that environment in a way that you're allowing some of those conversations, even though they might be awkward, to be sharing in workplace quality that's important to folks around you. Can I bring my 2-year-old to work until my sitter comes? She's very quiet, you know? So when you think about how you're going to answer some of these questions, a cheat sheet comes in handy. Okay, so this comes from a big long article, and if you want some of these statistics, just let me know. People will rise or fail to the degree that you believe they will, and a leader or supervisor who believes in the positive attributes of the folks that are around them and the potential of individuals have a tendency to start seeing some of those results. So if you think about developing employees in an area where the career path might not be fantastic, you want to think about what you've become. So I sometimes think about The Incredibles, and The Incredibles is a superhero movie for those of you that haven't seen it. And there's a section that I'm going to play for you, one of my favorite parts, and it makes me think about dispatchers, telecommunicators, and some of you folks that have been just in for the long haul. And I think about what you're willing to take and how much you can take, and then how it can still suffocate you. So we're just gonna spend a few seconds on this video. Hopefully you can see it. So what I'm gonna do is just make sure that I'm sharing my screen properly. Hold on a second. And I'm gonna stop share, and I'm gonna screen share a different screen so you can see my video. Go. Hopefully you can see this. It's just a couple.
No, it's not on the screen, but I can tell.
Okay, so I might not have shared that right in the very beginning. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so what I was showing, and I'm getting kind of good at figuring it out, possibly in the remote environment, is your superhero activity and how you can run down the hall and be a superhero, and then something sticks to you and you pull it off because you're a superhero. And you also have the opportunity to have a lot of that just shooting at you all at the same time. And then even though you are a superhero, and even though it's a fantastic job that you have, you really do have the opportunity to be suffocated no matter how strong you are. And at the end of that clip, when he's going to be snuffed out from the stress of it all, in comes in an unlikely hero, someone to help him. And actually, if you watch the movie, someone that works for the other side and is not necessarily a good person until the end. And you think through, what have you become, and what is it that you are participating with in your work environment when all of these things are sticking to you and you are still a superhero? So as you think through what have you become, and then what do you want this younger generation to become up underneath you and growing alongside you, you have sometimes the opportunity to be a control freak. You can be a champion of change and a champion of health and wellness. You can be, let's see, joyfulness. Sorry, my chat's going off. You can be poison in the watering hole. You can be a change agent. There's definitely a place that you can pick and a role that you can pick. And sometimes it is mindset, and sometimes it's the event. We can have overreactions, we can have defensive posturing, and sometimes it's the day of the week. We might be a champion until something hits the fan, and it might be instantaneous that we come to very quick decision making and abruptness because we're going to be in charge of a lot of things. And then we go back to joyfulness or positive behaviors. Sometimes we resist being a change agent. Someone taps us to do that. And when you think about a supervisor tapping someone to be a change agent, that's not easy because sometimes it's reluctant. They're asking you to do something and you don't really want to do it, and you're a reluctant change agent. And sometimes I hear, I'm the last to know. We're the last to know. No one tells us anything. As a matter of fact, they went and bought the CAD system. They never even asked the people that use it. Sometimes people go and buy 911 systems. They've never even answered the phone. What a concept. And it happens. And then you lose faith and respect, and you don't feel involved. So how do you manage some of those things, and what have you become, and how do you get all these little blobs that are sticking on you to pop off and ask for help, even from unlikely heroes, and continue with the strength? One of the favorite character traits that I have that we work in coaching all the time for folks that are helping others develop careers is faith. Confidence that actions rooted in good character will yield the best outcome, even when I cannot see how. Okay, well, I've met a lot of fire chiefs, police chiefs, sheriffs, supervisors, directors, comm center managers, paramedics, dispatchers, telecommunicators. I have yet to meet one that says, I got up today to see how I can screw up my team's life. I got up today to see what I can do to them. I got up today to buy new furniture for them just to mess up their world. So it's not often that their decisions are rooted in bad character, that their decisions are rooted in ill intentions. Changing furniture, changing CAD systems, sometimes it's a force or a dynamic of a grant or a legislation or a rule or a policy. One of the most frequent policy changes that we're dealing with today is removing cell phones from the floor, and the rebellion and retaliation that happens just even thinking about taking cell phones off the floor and checking them in and locking them up so that you're 100% dedicated. And often we apply that to someone's doing something to us. But there are things coming into the world and the changes and having faith in that the decisions are being made with good character and good intentions. It's hard to have faith in that when you're not involved. But it is a pretty important character trait to establish leadership and understanding, and then start seeking and figuring out what the greater good is. Okay, so what do we do about it? We're gonna probably not be able to get through all the exercises because obviously this is a 2 to 4 hour class, but we can agree to a couple things. Boundaries are necessary because of your role, your agency role, and your community impact. Standards such as rules of engagement or rules of conduct, and this does not necessarily have to be a policy or an SOP. This can be how you agree to be and how you agree to communicate. Focusing on the message that you want people to see, on the values that you're portraying at work, the things that are important to you, and the impact that you're going to give on this next generation of people learning how to be the first responders. And does this match who you are? and who you want to be? Does it match your values? And sometimes you're snarky. Yes, it matches me and I'm a jerk. Is that what you want working for you though? And is that what you want the reputation of your shift to be? The go-to shift? Are you the person that's the go-to person when the shift hits the fan? And I said shift hits the fan. Are you the go-to person where you have fostered trust and people can count on you to pull around 100-car pileup and the cars are on fire, and pulling together enough understanding in your values and purpose for your agency role and the role that you play and the impact on your community? And is that what you are giving your trainees and your new hires? By the way, we did a class recently in Arizona, and it was a resounding majority that said, I wish that they would use my first name in this new hire class. I wish they would use my first name. Instead, they call me FNG or rookie or my trainee. And I actually met one that was physically moved into the room and sat in the front row by her supervisor. My trainees sit in the front row. And I thought, what these people must be going through to want to come back and do it the next day. Does that match your character? I hope not, because we really do want folks coming into the world excited about being a first responder. So if you are leaving today after 3 days of amazingness, take a couple things with you. One, you need to see each other from a new perspective instead of the labels. The label of burnout, or the label of millennial, or the label of drama or gossip, and start figuring out what you identify with and praise the qualities that motivate the achievements of others. This sheet, by the way, which Maureen has as part of our handouts, we often throw up on the board and say, what do you want from your supervisors? And we list them up on the board using this sheet. And then we throw up their supervisors. What do you want from your teams? It's pretty interesting that often the list is the same. Discretion, flexibility, initiative. Initiative shows up often, by the way, recognizing and doing what needs to be done before I'm asked to do it. Dependability pops up on the list often, fulfilling what I consented to do, even if it means unexpected sacrifice. Punctuality, showing esteem for others by doing the right thing at the right time. By the way, it doesn't say don't be late. It says show esteem for others. So when you go through an exercise and you have difficult teams, or you have difficult people, or you have problem children, it's a good idea to figure out what you want to identify with and praise. Sometimes I play tricks on you. I'll go down the list of what do you want from folks, but I will have already had your folks score you. And 9 times out of 10, they will come back and they will want discretion, recognizing and avoiding words, actions, and attitudes that bring undesirable consequences. And I say, okay, is that circled on your list? Are you scored as a person that displays discretion often? No? Oh, okay, but you want it from your folks. So you should probably start practicing it. So one of the things that works on a team, especially if you're leading by example, is if you want something, it's a good idea to display it. You want respect, it's a good idea to display it. You want faith that the decisions are being made with good intentions, it'll be a good idea to display it. So when you think about what people want, leadership, self-control, excellence, responsibility, courteousness, common courtesies, truthfulness. This we went through yesterday, open-mindedness in your culture, trust, training, best practices on character and value, transparency, messaging consistently. So those are all exercises we went over for a couple of days. And then being willing to learn. We talked about this earlier in the session. Work-life balance that you can learn from younger folks, energy, technology. What can they learn from you? Experience, good communications, recognition, And then as a group, if you move away from excessive discipline into coaching, you start to work on things that are career path encouraging and career path development. We went over 3 days straight now, coping skills, readiness, sharing information, and training. Our handouts from the last couple of days have some cheat sheets on how to do this. We talked earlier today about you deciding to be and deciding to ask for. When someone gives you a crazy question or a silly question, you decide to be something on your character-based communications, and you decide to ask for something. What do I do when my boss is the worst gossip in the center? And before you answer that, you decide to be something and you figure out what you're going to ask for. And it's always, always okay to prepare for the conversations. Look, that's a difficult question. I just need a few minutes to gather my thoughts so I don't shoot from the hip. And therein lies honesty and transparency. And you get ready for those difficult questions. Now, you guys are going through a lot of stuff out in the world of humans, and we do have some job aids and training aids that I did not give to Maureen because we typically preface them with how to use them. But we do have support for you on difficult conversations, confrontation, health and wellness when you're dealing with obesity or fatigue, or any kind of issue that is from excessive stress. So just feel free to reach out. We also have some mentoring and inspiring staff retention strategies, handouts and job aids that are going to help you interview and do career pathing. Goals, we went through this yesterday, so that handout Maureen has, if you guys are working through career path and professional development, even though someone might not be able to get promoted, they can work on certifications and mastering a particular topic or ENP or RPL. And there's a lot of accreditations and certifications that people can work towards. There's also some cheat sheets, coaching versus discipline. If you have a perfectionist, we have a cheat sheet and a job aid on different ways that you communicate with different personalities. Gone are the days where you can expect everybody to approach it the same way. Let me just go back to this one because you have a couple of folks that might be drama. So then you use empathy, value-based communications, leadership. You might have some overachievers. In that space, you would avoid micromanaging and you would be using patience. So as you start to figure out who's on your team, you have worriers, you have slackers. I've met some of them. And what you want to do is start thinking through how you communicate as if it was Spanish or as if it was a deaf person. This language and this communication, learning different ways to communicate with which to keep that overarching goal to grow their career and their professionalism for the time that they're going to spend being your first responders. You're also going to have some folks with poor health. Those are difficult conversations to have. And so it's okay to practice, certainly okay to ask for help. Being an example is always one of the best parts. Figuring out how to have change in your agency. Yesterday, we popped up a couple of ideas on how you can create change. And so sometimes when you tackle it yourself, you pull people with you. We shared a great story of a lady that had cancer that went up on a hike. And there's so many different stories. Over in Minneapolis, there is a lady who pulled together a study group of 10 people in her agency, and 8 of them passed the EMP test and became emergency number professionals because she set a goal to create professionalism in her center. And in the process, she quit smoking and lost 72 pounds. And when you think about not partying on the island of Suck over there and figuring out how to thrive, you definitely want to map into something that you can pull people with you. And if it's that younger generation, you're going to find very cool things and ideas if you let them have a voice and let them speak and participate in your overall health and wellness of your center. And if only to beg them not to quit so that you can have a day off. Please don't quit because you need a day off. And start somewhere. And then understand your motivators And that helps you start understanding theirs. And much like we started on Monday, you tie yourself to your work environment. You're self-aware. I'm certainly self-aware. I'm an oversharer, over talker, over something, over dancer. And you got to have some purpose and goals. Otherwise you're coasting, and that's not learning and growing. And you want consistent reliability, consistent reactions. You don't want to be consistently on the island of suck. And then you start to create that change, and it's a full circle. It's never one and done, and you want to participate in that. And so communicating, whether you think it's a stupid question or not, communicating in how you react and respond starts to define their professionalism and whether they're going to stick around and work for you any much longer. And if they're going to be motivated to get up and come again another day and give you a day off. So those communication choices become yours, and leading by example becomes you. And lots of cheat sheets, by the way. I use it often. And I have had someone want to bring their support dog to work. I said yes to that. I regretted it, by the way, and we had to change our ways. So it's okay to try it, figure it out, and then try again. I think I'm done with my time, but I wanted to give a few minutes for questions in the chat. I'm going to leave this up because somebody wanted that up, and leaving it up with a little cheat sheet. So I'll leave that there. And I can't see the chat, Matt, because I minimized it to fumble around my video. And so I'm here if you guys have questions, and if you want to throw something out at me. I'm going to leave this up, and Maureen has our contact information and all the handouts that I mentioned earlier today. But I have super faith in you, and I'm super excited. You guys doing a virtual conference, and pretty fantastic that you guys were able to pull everything together. And I sure hope I get to come out into the field and see you guys again like I did last year. Let me see if I can find the chat.
Matt, this is Jimmy Long. I don't know if Matt was still on, but I don't see any questions right now. Is there anyone out there that has any? I'm not getting any, Maureen. Thank you for your presentation very much.
No worries. We didn't play Stump the Teacher today because that tends to make the class go to 2 hours. So usually I do a little Stump the Teacher. I took that part out for you. Otherwise we'd be going till 6, and it is the end of the day. So.
Yes, ma'am, but you did a great job. Thank you very much. Matt, are you there?
Well, it's Justin. I'm going to close out the day of the conference today.
Hi, Justin.
Mo, thanks for your presentation. Did very well, and good information for all of us to go back and review and look at, and better ourselves as managers and dealing with all kinds of different people and scenarios for sure. The winner of the gift card is Rachel Payne. So she will be emailed a gift card here shortly before the day's out. So congratulations to her.